I am so proud of this place. You're the best. I'm really honored to read with Al and with Patricia. Al, you preach. Patricia, Motown, salute, Chi. You were fantastic. Thank you so much for the reading. So I'm going to start with a few poems and then read from I'm going to be brave because that's what we do here, right? I'm going to read from an unpublished new genre for me, the memoir, okay? So I've spent the last 6 years on an island in the northern Aegean in Greece, and it's very close to Lesbos where there are a lot of refugees. 63.5 million people right now are refugees fleeing wars, mostly that we have begun or are promoting. Many of them have walked from those wars in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, walked to Europe. Many of them have gotten into little rubber boats and crossed the Mediterranean from Libya to Italy, from Libya to Greece, from Iraq through Turkey to Greece, to try to get to Europe, to try to escape the war and to find a life. So the first two poems I'm going to read are about that experience, and they are from encounters with people who had that experience. So I'd like to begin with a poem called The Boatman. And this man was in one of the boats on that sea. We were 31 souls all, he said, on the gray sick of sea, in a cold rubber boat, rising and falling in our filth. By morning, this didn't matter. No land was in sight. All were soaked to the bone, living and dead. We could still float, we said, from war to war. What lay behind us but ruins of stone piled on ruins of stone? City called Mother of the Poor, surrounded by fields of cotton and millet. City of jewelers and cloak makers with the oldest church in Christendom and the sword of Allah. If anyone remains there now, he assures, they would be utterly alone. There is a hotel named for it in Rome, 200 meters from the Piazza di Spagna, where you can have breakfast under the portraits of film stars. There the staff cannot do enough for you. But I am talking nonsense again. As I have since that night, we fetched a child, not ours, from the sea, drifting face down in a life vest, its eyes taken by fish or the birds above us. After that, Aleppo went up in smoke, and Raqqa came under a rain of leaflets warning everyone to go. Leave, yes, but go where? We lived through the Americans and Russians, through Americans again, many nights of death from the clouds, morning surprised to be waking from the sleep of death, still unburied and alive, but with no safe place. Leave, yes, we obey the leaflets, but go where? To the sea to be eaten, to the shores of Europe to be caged, to camp misery and camp remain here. I ask you then where? You tell me you are a poet. If so, our destination is the same. I find myself now the boatman, driving a taxi at the end of the world. I will see that you arrive safely, my friend. I will get you there. And this is called Mourning. in the sense of grieving rather than the time of day. Morning. A peacock on an olive branch looks beyond the grove to the road, beyond the road to the sea, blank lit where a sailboat anchors to a cove. As it is morning, below deck a man is pouring water into a cup, listening to the radio talk of the ships, barges dead in the calms awaiting port call, pleasure boats whose lights hours ago went out, fishermen setting their nets for mullet. As summer tavernas hang octopus to dry on their lines, whisper smoke into wood ovens, sweep the terraces clear of night, putting the music out with morning light. And for the breath of an hour, it is possible to consider the waters of the sea wine dark, to remember that there is no word for blue among the ancients. But there was the whirring sound before the oars of the great triremes sang out of the seam of world, through pine-sieved winds, silvered by salt flats, until they were light enough to pass for breath from the heavens, troubled enough to fell ships and darken thought. Then, as now, the clouds pass, roosters asleep in their huts, the sea flattens under glass air, but there is nothing to hold us there. Not the quiet of marble, nor the luff of sail, fields of time, a vineyard at harvest, and the sea filled with the bones of those in flight from wars east and south, our wars. Their remains scavenged on the sea floor, and in its caves, belongings now a flotsam wash to the rocks. Stand here and look into the distant haze. There where the holy mountain with its 1,000 monks wraps itself in shawls of rain. Then look to the west where the rubber boats tipped into the tough waves. Rest your eyes there, remembering the words of Anacreon, himself a refugee of war, who appears in the writings of Herodotus. I love and do not love. I am mad and I am not mad. Like you, he thought himself not better nor worse than anyone else. This poem is for Elise. This goes out to her and to Brian. And it's for all of you, any of you, and anyone you know who suffered through cancer. What comes? To speak is not yet to have spoken. The not yet of a white realm of nothing left, neither for itself nor another. A no longer already there, along with the arrival of what has been light. And the reverse of light. Terror as walking blind along the breaking sea, body in whom I lived. The not yet of death darkening what it briefly illuminates. An unknown place as between languages, back and forth, breath to breath, as a calm in the surround rises. Fireflies in lindens, an ache of pine. You have yourself within you. Yourself. You have her. And there is nothing that cannot be seen. Open then to the coming of what comes. I'm now going to read some memoir. It's called What You Have Heard Is True, which is the first line from my poem, The Colonel. And the memoir begins with an epigraph from my tutelary spirit writer of the 20th century, James Baldwin, whose birthday was yesterday. And the quote is, "For the strangest people in the world are those people recognized beneath one's senses by one's soul, the people utterly indispensable for one's journey." The man that I'll be reading about was the man who was he was a nephew of Claribel Alegría, the poet that I translated in Deya in the summer of 1977. His name was Leonel Gomez Vidas, and he was a very interesting guy who invited me to come to El Salvador before the war because he thought a poet should see this. And he was a coffee farmer and a lot of other crazy things, and he was my guide and mentor for 30 years. And I will, there was a time in El Salvador while I was there that some people, mostly campesinos, thought I was a Catholic nun because I had short hair and I chain smoked and I wore blue jeans, which is what North American nuns tended to do. But there were other people, as you will find out, that thought I was something else entirely. And that will give you a little bit of background of how I found myself at the Colonel's table in the Colonel poem. So I'm just going to read some sections of this, and we'll see what happens. They're drawn from different parts of the memoir, but they're discrete sections, so we'll see. "There is something you should know," Leonel said. "We had gone again to the region of Ahuachapan and beyond, this time as far as the sea, where there was an outdoor cafe that served the cockle shells that Leonel liked. I don't want this to worry you, but it seems that not everyone thinks you are a nun. Some people in the Salvadoran military think you might actually work for the CIA, or maybe the American embassy, they're not sure what." The wind lifted the red checkered tablecloth and blew across the bowl of cockle shells, nearly tipping the bottle of Coke. The gray sea heaved upon the black sand beach below the cafe, one of the beaches where, he had told me, corpses sometimes wash up. "We look for them regularly here," he said. "I don't understand. Why would they think this? You told them I wasn't, didn't you?" "I tried. I don't think they believed me." "But why? That's absurd." "They believed